Alright, so once again, I'm Band-Aid Specialist here with HorrorRant. I apologize for the unfortunate um, circumstances that we just had to deal with. Um, I'm not really sure what the problem was, um, but alright. So instead of doing everything we were going to do, instead of doing like the music video, all that other fun stuff, um, we're going to split this into two. Instead of doing two movies today and two movies on Thursday, we're going to do one and one. So today is going to be Freddy versus Jason, which unfortunately we had to hold off a little bit on due to personal issues in both of our lives. So we apologize for that. Um, and then Thursday we're going to finish it off. We'll do the music video. Then we'll have the god awful Nightmare on Elm Street remake to go over. But as always, before we hop into the trailer, Callum, do you have anything you would like to add for Freddy vs. Jason?
Yeah, so this is an iconic film just for the fact it is the crossover of two legendary franchises. I mean, how could you not enjoy seeing Freddy Krueger and Jason Voorhees battle it out for ultimate championship of teen slaughter? I mean, this movie it really is a definitive moment in the horror genre. I don't get why it gets the amount of hate it does. I know it's not the best movie, but fucking hell, is it fun? Yeah, it is. It's one of the best fucking good time films out there.
I mean, when you're looking at actual throwdown, face to face showcases, it doesn't get much better than this. There are other franchises that have tried this. Puppet Master, which is well known for itself in some aspects, but Demonic Toys is not. They had a little face to face showdown, and it's hard as fuck to find that movie anywhere. And I remember seeing it on, I think it was IFC or something weird. Um, but without further ado, here is the official trailer for Freddy vs. Jason from 2003.
Warn your friends. Warn everyone.
Welcome to my nightmare.
We're not safe awake or asleep.
Why won't you die? Freddy versus Jason.
Place your bets.
Yeah, it's one of those films that was obviously like so anticipated at the end of what is it now? Jason Goes to Hell. Obviously, when Freddy's glove comes up out of the ground and drags Jason's mask down to hell, it was so anticipated. Obviously, they went through. I think it was 30 different. 30 different scripts, ideas, plots for this movie, and they went for one that was so completely fucking stupid, but it works so well. Yeah, doesn't turn out well. I mean, you can clearly tell it's got Hollywood written all over it. You can tell by how much better it looks overall and the big budget. A lot of it feels so like a lot of thought and care went into it, which you can clearly see. There's so much love from director Ronnie Yu into this film, and I think the combination of these two franchises merging together, it just fits so well. Um, because the two pole opposite characters. Obviously, Jason's mute, and his characterization is basically just in his body language and the way he holds himself in the movies. So obviously, there's skepticism about how that would go up against, Freddy, this comical figure who is crude, rude, and sinister. But, when they collide, fucking hell, they collide.
Which Freddy is anything, but his normal self. And I do have to say, with the exception, as far as Freddy's concerned, with the exception of New Nightmare, I think this is one of Freddy's best outfits.
Yeah, the makeup's darker, and even the sweater itself looks darker, which is a nice touch.
Absolutely, and it looks so much deadlier. Even Jason, like, there were so many people threw a fit about Jason X, but Uber Jason in that is that terrifying. Absolutely, and then they still managed to top it with the traditional Jason, but made him so much more grotesque looking, if you will.
Yeah, more rugged and grisly. Yeah.
Now, the last video before we get into all the other fun stuff that I do want to show for this, and this is another thing that I still remember when I was a kid, and I remember having the actual DVD before, I think they did make a VHS of it, but when I had the DVD and had all the extra stuff, I remember this was one of the special features, and again, it was something so cool because you have, again, these two iconic villains, and for promotional reasons, they did a weigh-in. So,
Yeah.
with that, here is the Freddy vs. Jason weigh-in. Now, mind you, this is a little pixelated compared to the trailer itself.
Movie fans and fight fans of all ages, let's get ready to rumble! Introducing first, to my right, with over 1,000 career kills, he's come back to life 7 times. Hailing from Elm Street, the man with the killer right hand, the Springwood slasher, Freddy Krueger. Now, ladies and gentlemen, to my left, his opponent. Over 1,200 kills, 10 times resurrected, and he's got one mean machete. Ladies and gentlemen, from Camp Crystal Lake, introducing the Tower of Power, Jason Voorhees. Gentlemen, please, at this time, we would like to have a weigh-in. Could you please step backstage here behind it? Mr. Krueger, Mr. Voorhees, please. Back here, please.
You're slow, you're stupid, and you're all washed up.
Freddy Krueger, 174 3/4 pounds. Freddy Krueger. Jason Voorhees, 275 pounds.
Jason, there's been a great deal of controversy about your training methods. How do you respond to that?
No comment.
What's the matter? Can't you speak for yourself, hockey puck?
Senor Freddy, what do you anticipate will be your most difficult challenge in fighting Jason?
Wait till you see if this Goldie here can find the ring.
Freddy,
What?
do you feel your ability to speak and thus talk trash gives you a distinct advantage in intimidating Jason before your big fight?
I don't need no distinct advantage. With Mama's boy here, he's big, he's dumb, he's slow, he's stupid, and he ain't got no style. Place your bets, people. See you in the ring, Voorhees.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Those are the official odds. Jason is a 2-3 favorite over Freddy, who is 7-5 as an underdog. Security. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the press conference, I believe, is over at this time. We thank you for coming to Dallas, Las Vegas. Don't forget, it's going to be the rumble between Freddy versus Jason. August 15th. We'll see you then, everybody. Thank you for coming.
Freddy versus Jason.
Place your bets.
So, just that in itself, like, that shows, even for that time in 2003, that was a big fucking deal. Because again, you had two iconic villains coming into essentially the same world, but from different worlds.
Exactly, and that was so big back then. You wouldn't get anything like that now in 2022 if two iconic crossovers happen like that. Yeah, that just showed the dedication, how much the fans wanted to see that. They put so much into the publicity towards it, into the marketing, everything. They went full out with all the production and marketing for that movie, and it just shows the hype, and everyone was so excited for it.
But what makes it so much more interesting is that you have Robert Englund, who was in, I think he was like 56 or something along those lines then, and watching the movie himself and him dancing around like it's nothing is wild. And
it's like a credit to him as an actor that he was still doing all that at his age.
Exactly, and again, Ronnie Yu, he, props to him, he did a phenomenal job bringing these two horrific but iconic characters, to this entire different realm that nobody had probably thought of.
Yeah, it's one of those things as well. I know, like, Kane Hodder really wanted be Jason for this, because he was Jason for the past few installments of the Friday the 13th franchise.
Which I think he was one of the best.
Oh yeah, he was phenomenal. His physique and the stunts that he did, because I know he did all his own stunts, were absolutely incredible. He is Jason. But even Ken Kersinger, who does portray Jason in this film, he did a fantastic job as well. It's the little characterizations that he manages to bring to the role, it's also like Jason's got this sense of sarcasm about him when he's noticing things, and he just has this slow tilt and stuff towards whatever it is he's viewing, and his little gimpy walk. I love it. I think he's just fantastic.
Past the face value of this, I have to give so much of a standing ovation, even though I'm not going to stand, to the actual front cast members. Monica Keena did a phenomenal job as Laurie. Jason Ritter, him as Will.
Jason Ritter, yeah.
There were some parts where it was kind of but at the same time, he made it work, and I love that. One person,
Catherine Isabel, love Catherine Isabel as well as Gibbs and stuff.
Oh my god, yes.
I think Catherine Isabel, no matter what role she plays, she's always going to have a standout role. And even though her character wasn't in it for that much, what she was in, it was, great to see her on the screen. She's a screen queen through and through.
Oh my
she might
god,
not be the main one, but overall, she's fantastic. I loved her in American Mary. That was such a perfect film for her. But again, she does well in this, and even Kelly Rowland, she's not an actress, but I loved Kia. She played Kia in this film, and she was so fun to watch on screen. She was so ghetto.
But she had that range. That was what made that character great, was that range that she was able to pull off.
When she's bad mouthing Freddy towards the end of the movie, and it is just, I didn't expect Kelly Rowland to be, funny. I just see her as this amazing singer from Destiny's Child, Beyonce's understudy, basically.
But what makes that part so much better, and I say this so very loosely, mind you, is the role where the scene where she stood up to Freddy had a lot of controversy, because Freddy's response to it was "How sweet dark meat," and there were so many people that cried racism because Freddy Krueger said that.
I mean, he wasn't saying anything bad in a way. He was just noticing, obviously, her skin tone and stuff. Because I think besides Kia, he's never really gone up against a person of colour, to say. I think the only main two were Sheila in Nightmare 4 and Yvonne in Nightmare 5. And Kincaid in Nightmare 3. But obviously this is a female victim who's got attitude. He's going to toy with her. He's going to comment on it. If that's Freddy, he's fun. He does what's not allowed.
Well, so that's that's the thing. When you have a child murderer, are you really going to expect him to really play by the rules?
Exactly. Freddy's not racist. He doesn't discriminate. If his victim's black, he'll kill them. If his victim's gay, he'll kill them.
Yeah,
he doesn't. Just straight white women.
Exactly. He doesn't give a fuck. And thinking back to the other black characters, with the exception of Kincaid, because Kincaid was a badass. I don't think, even though the face-to-face time between them and Freddy was a little bit more significant, I don't remember any actually going up to Freddy and calling him out personally and insulting him to get his attention away from somebody else. And
saying his finger knives are basically a way to compensate for having such a small dick. That is so great.
Right, and for that to pretty much insult a burnt up demon is fucking awesome.
And the thing is as well, she intercepts because Freddy's not after her. He's going after Laurie and Will. He's got no issues with Kia. Obviously, when she's pulling him up and stuff, and she starts getting his attention, he's going to go for the easier target because it's what would you rather do? Go up against 2 or go up against 1?
Right.
Because he wants Laurie dead for because she is Freddy's main target in this. But you're not going to pass up the opportunity to kill Kia, especially if she's saying you've got a little dick and stuff.
Right, like at that point, like she's asking for it.
And the Christmas sweater joke as well. I think that was fucking.
That was great. I loved it. Now, still going through the cast, I have to say Brendan Fletcher is even though he was not in this as long as I really feel like he should have been, he is
I forget, which character did he play?
He played Mark.
Mark.
Died in the bathroom.
Oh, no. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Mark. I just thought he was
really
boring. Boring.
So I can't argue that with you because the character himself was, but Brendan Fletcher himself, just based upon other films I saw, and there's a trilogy that he's actually a part of that it's not so much a horror, it's more of a thriller, what if kind of deal, but he plays essentially this radicalist that goes on a rampage, and funny enough, the movie series is called Rampage, against like American government tyranny ideas, blah blah blah, and not even so much that it stems into like worldwide politics and that, but it becomes more of this like horrific thing because he's killing people, but it's the range that he showed there, and funny enough, the second one from that trilogy, what's his name? Lachlan Monroe, who played Deputy Scott.
Love him in Scary Movie.
He even oh my god, yeah! But he even played in the sequel that Brendan Fletcher starred in. And it's the range that these characters have, and I can't help but think with a lot of them, even if they were somewhere at some point besides this movie had to make them.
And yeah, but in a way, you'd think with them being in such a big blockbuster for horror, which is what it is, because horror doesn't really do the best at the box office. I mean, like, it can gather, a big mid 100,000 box office, but obviously this one was just bringing everyone into the cinema. So yeah, with a big turnout for this movie, considering the cast who was in it, I kind of expected them to have a better career after this, but unfortunately I've not heard of the majority of them in anything bright and popular after this movie. I mean, of course, Catherine Isabel and Kelly Rowland are the main ones I can think of. I do like Monica Keenan's performance in this, but I've not seen her in anything else, I think. So I can't really comment on that.
Well, so I mean, that's the thing is, I guess it depends on which side of Hollywood you're looking at. So Brendan Fletcher, the trilogy that he was in, they were really big, but the problem is they were looked down in horror, and it was because it essentially took the idea of, hey, America's not that great, which I'm not saying that we're not a great country, but there are some significant right, and not even so much that the world has so many problems, and this takes this one guy who's an extremist, he believes in all these things, and he fucking acts on them and kills all these other people, robs a bank, and makes this point of none of this means anything because what is the problem of what I'm doing when the world are killing each other for whatever. Now that's why that wasn't a big thing. It was a big movie, but nobody wants to talk about it because that's a horrific event. The same thing as if you look at school shooters. In America, obviously that's still a touchy subject, but it's weird. It's even Lachlan Monroe starring in something like that with Brendan Fletcher is phenomenal. But going back to this movie, it's I think, like you said at the beginning, received a lot of hate. And I think the reason it received a lot of hate was not so much for the movie itself. I think it was some of the lines that it crossed.
Yeah, like, I don't think the hate was coming from the fans. It was from just a larger audience in general, like critics and stuff. Because it is sleazy fun, is what it is. It's not there to be the best film ever, which is not like what all of the films in both franchises. They're not meant to be, Oscar winners. They're just meant to entertain the fans, and I think that's what it did so successfully. It didn't care about, winning the best original score for a film or anything like that, best actor. It just entertained the fans, and I think the fans warmed to it really well, which is great to see.
I agree. This has to be overall one of my absolute favorites. Now, going into how we usually do about the reviews. So IMDb, and again, and this isn't the first one that we reference. I even think New Nightmare had some shitty reviews when it came to these places. But IMDb gave this film a 5.7 out of 10. Rotten Tomatoes gave it a 41%. Metacritic gave it a 37%. However, 87% of Google users liked this movie. And I feel like that number should be bigger, but I have to side with them. The overall reviews, however. So, audience rating summary is 4.2 out of 5, 193 ratings. So the very first one that pops up is a 5-star rating, which I believe this would be the first out of any of the other ones that we looked at. This would be the first.
Yeah.
Exactly. And this isn't the only one. But it was Freddy vs. Jason succeeds at putting two of horror icons of the last century for the ultimate death match in cinematic history. I have so much nostalgia for this movie because I seen it when I was 6 years old. I love the characters like Monica Keena, Kelly Rowland, and Catherine Isabelle. They were the most attractive part of this movie. This is one of the few films in the 2000s I don't mind revisiting numerous times throughout the year. My favorite part in the movie is cinematography and the music of the party in the cornfield, which was kind of, it was interesting. It brought on that rave ideology. So that was that one that was more nostalgic. The next one is pretty much giving an ovation to Ronnie Yu, which, oh my god, I think he went above and beyond for this. The cinematography is wild. I
know there's some great set pieces in here. Like we said, the cornfield where the rave's taking place. Anything at Crystal Lake in this movie it just looks phenomenal.
Which the cornfield was one of my favorite scenes, and not so much the overall ideology. It had some good parts there. There were other parts that I guess if we're looking at like the overall aspect of it, that it would come out on the top. But where that became my favorite one is that was when Freddy and Jason figured out they weren't on the same team, and Jason pissed Freddy off by taking his kill.
Yeah, because he was going to kill Catherine Isabel's character, wasn't he? Because obviously she was trapped in a dream and stuff, running through a boiler room, which was actually a silo.
Right, and I think that's what makes it so much more unique, is because now you have these two people that are invading each other's territories.
Yeah, it was great how it incorporated the Jason taking this person out of Freddy's dream and stuff. Because obviously Freddy just wants to kill. He just wants to have fun. He wants to dig his knives in. And, I think that's where it excels. It's the banter. Even though Jason doesn't speak, again, it's just his body language, the way he communicates with Freddy. I think that's where they excel so much, these two characters who come together.
Now, to end the internet review segment here, just like I think I did with New Nightmare, I had to find the negative ratings. And I found 2 1 stars in a row. So the very first one comes from the Highlights channel, and it was rated 1 star out of 5 6 months ago. It reads, "This movie could have been so much more. They had the right idea with bringing these two iconic horror characters together. The biggest problem with me was the storyline. They didn't trust their audience to understand the movie correctly and explain everything. Another big problem was it didn't feel like a horror movie to me. It was more of an action comedy and horror at times. The biggest problem of it all was the way Freddy and Jason fought. The end battle was amazing. Just the other fights, such as Freddy would get thrown 50 feet in the air every time Jason touched him, when Jason was never proven to be this strong in any Friday the 13th films, and it ruins the horror experience for me." So holy fuck, this person obviously does not know Friday the 13th very much, because Jason has a superhuman-like ability to fuck people up.
Do you know what, though? I can understand where he's coming from. I really can. Anytime anyone gets hit by Jason, they go fucking flying, they get yeeted. Again, it brings me back to Kelly Rowland, when Kia gets fucking catapults into a fucking tree when they're in the burning building towards the climax of the film in one of the lodges. Lennerman, he gets fucking yeeted. Kelly Rowland gets yeeted again. She's twatting Jason there with a frying pan, big ugly motherfucker, and again he just whacks her. She gets yeeted. I think, but I think it's just the action-packed budget and direction they wanted to go for. Obviously, things flying everywhere, but yeah, but Freddy does the same as well, especially when, you know, he gets Jason in the dream and stuff in the boiler room, and then Freddy's fucking playing pinball with Jason.
Oh my god, that was...
Ding, 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 ding.
Oof. Then when he said tilt, oh my god, that was phenomenal. So the only thing, and again, we still have one more negative right underneath, but the only thing, I don't want to say that, there's probably more, but these are two are stacked, but the only thing I can really give this one is the storyline itself. And it goes back to Laurie's character and her backstory and her dad's involvement with Weston Hills.
Yeah, see, I have the issue, like, why does that tie into the story? I mean, there's nothing wrong with having, like, you know, a little backstory for the main protagonist, but it doesn't fully need to link into what's going on in the plot. Because the timeline just doesn't add up, because this is a continuation of Freddy's story from Freddy's Dead.
Right, because it takes place in Springwood.
Yeah, you ignore Wes Craven's New Nightmare, you take that out of the equation. This is just a continuation of Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare. And in that one, we had, bear in mind, when was that? 1991. So in the 12 years, in the difference between these timelines, you're telling me that in 1991, when all the kids in Springwood mysteriously weren't there, they disappeared, and it was just the adults, in 12 years, there's been a boom in teenagers, which doesn't make sense. And there's also, you know, all the people are saying now, even, well, you know, it does tie in bits, because the police, once obviously the first murder at the Elm Street house take place, are saying, you know, could it be him? Could it be Freddy? And they're like, don't say that name, don't remember him, which does tie into it, but it's so confusing how in that 12-year span, from going from no kids to having teenagers who are 16, 17, 18, however old they are, it just doesn't make sense at all.
So, I think they had a unique possibility they could have ran with. So, and I am drawing a significant blank, but I almost feel like the names were similar. The mental institution from Nightmare 3.
You think that's where they all went?
I think that's where they were trying to go, and then they even brought up Hypnosil, which was unique to that setting.
Yeah, Nightmare 3, yeah.
And that was phenomenal, because that made sense to really any Nightmare fan. But where I think they crossed a line, where they crossed a intelligent line, was when they introduced Laurie and her dad, and he had a role in this. and Freddy tried to kill her mom, but her dad covered it up. Like, that's where I think the biggest hole is.
Yeah.
And it's just because it does not tie in with anything else. And then, unfortunately, again, as much as I like Jason just happens to be essentially a co-star. He's there, but nobody really gives a fuck, except for the fact he's just killing everybody.
Yeah, like, this is meant to be Freddy's... You know, it is Freddy's movie in full retrospect, because it's taking place in Elm Street, mainly. It's Freddy bringing back Jason, and it's got more nightmares in it than, you know, fucking Jason as at Crystal Lake. But in a way, Jason does steal the spotlight from Freddy in so many more aspects. Like, look at the deaths. There's one Freddy death in this movie, and I think the body count is somewhere around 16. Jason gets everything else.
Yeah, and again, I kind of understand. Again, the Freddy's not strong enough. Jason's supposed to have to bring these two people back together, and they have the right idea. They had a phenomenal idea when they were, when Freddy had found Jason in hell and stirred everything up. That was a great idea. It makes sense because they both went there. Anybody that knows the franchises know that. But where was the tie-in that Jason's killings were anywhere similar to Freddy's? Like, for example, so the very first killing at 1428 Elm Street, where the bed was snapped in half. Yeah, there were some fantastical killings in the Nightmare franchise. But
the only way we could tie it to Freddy is because it was in a bed in that house.
Right. But the gruesome nature of it still wasn't Freddy. Even in the dreams in that where like he would pull people through the bed, or the waterbed scene, or things like that. For the most part, they ended up being natural ideologies of natural disasters, essentially, or natural accidents. This happened to be something extremely grotesque that could have happened in the real world, and that's where I think there was a little bit of a delay in how would they have made that immediate connection that it was Freddy Krueger. Could it have been that it was an inhuman thing that happened because it was no human's going to fold a fucking bed with somebody in it,
and the machete wounds in the back as well,
which wouldn't jive with Freddy Krueger, who obviously he's either slashing, or if he stabs somebody, it's multiple wounds at once.
4 little puncture holes.
Exactly. But yeah, so I do believe there were some plot holes.
It's riddled with plot holes, but it's a beautiful plot still, nonetheless.
Exactly. I think it had the right idea. Its execution was a little off, but take away the execution, it was still fucking beautiful. And
it's funny as well. Like, there's some brilliant one-liners from Freddy.
Yes. In
all of this. I think one of my... As you said before, How Sweet Dark Meat. There's one I can't think... Oh, right, that's it. So, do you know towards the end of the film when Laurie is asleep because she's trying to, get Jason at Crystal Lake and stuff, and she's in the back of the van, she's asleep, and she's at Crystal Lake in her dream, and she's looking around, and there's loads of camp counselors ignoring Jason, getting bullied, pushed into the lake.
I know exactly where the fuck you're going with this.
And she says to the camp counselors, there's 2 of them, there's about 4 of them having sex, and she says to these 2 camp counselors, aren't you coming? And the way that coming is emphasised, obviously I know it's like an innuendo dirty joke, and then it cuts to Freddy, who's actually shagging a dead body, and he's like, well, can you blame me or something, and starts waving his dead girl back.
Can you blame me? This bitch is dead on her feet. Yeah. It was that the post night, or the Nightmare 4 and post Onward Freddy, but what I felt this one had for Freddy, that even though he didn't have a lot of kills, which there were a lot of nightmares where he really wasn't stacking bodies, this took him into a terrifying turn, and I think what made that terrifying thought happen was the very beginning where you seen his eyes.
Yeah.
Exactly. You didn't see his face, you didn't see anything else, but you saw his eyes, you saw his bloodshot eyes, and
and the grotesque teeth as well that are dead sharp and cavitied and burnt lips.
Exactly.
It's like the opposite of Rocky Horror.
Right, and it's one of those things that already put him into a horrific light. So I think even though those jokes were there, and I think they were done well, but even though those jokes were there, I think it made it, because they made Freddy scary, was why it worked. Yeah,
fully. He does have like a darker tone, and again, it fits in well with his darker sweater, darker makeup. He looks beautiful. I just want to give Freddy a big kiss in this movie, but also I want to shit my pants and run away. But if we're talking about Freddy's design, like Jason's design is, again, it's Jason in a hockey mask, but it's more grungier. His that big overcoat jacket that he wears and stuff, it looks like it's come out of the swamp. And the makeup design behind his face when Kia takes the mask off, to give him CPR. Like, first of all, you do not give anyone a CPR who looks like that.
No, fuck that.
He's gonna kill you. Like, hello, he's been trying to fucking slash you to death. So why would you save this little bastard's life? I know why they tried to do it, obviously for the plot reasons and stuff. But it's gross. But yeah, even when she takes the mask off and he's got that decaying flesh and stuff, it looks beautiful. I'd sit on that face. Sorry, is this turned into like some porn fan fiction? Oh,
that's all right. It's horror. It's close enough. But yeah, I think, this was the most grotesque of both versions of them, and even with Jason, everything started at the beginning when he was told by his fictional mom to get up and go do thy bidding. You saw his heart and his lungs and everything from the exterior, and just that was not Jason, but that was something more terrifying than the Jason, even just Uber Jason. And we're talking about this big motherfucker that was beating the shit out of everyone.
Yeah, like fully, yeah. And it is just bringing Pamela Voorhees back into it as well. It's a nice tie into the original, and obviously a tie into Jason's history in the Friday franchise, because obviously she was the original killer in the first one, which a lot of people forget about. You just think of Friday the 13th, you think of Jason Voorhees, you completely forget that Pamela was, the POV killer who we got in the first one. So it was nice. And that little old lady, she just looks scary, even without her saying anything. She looks mad and angry. And then obviously when she transforms into Freddy, it's like an even worse thing. You're like, wow, fuck you, bitch.
Yeah, right. Like way to just ruin my night.
Yeah.
So the next bad review is, this movie is simply an embarrassment to the horror movie genre. The storyline is ridiculous, which we've already discussed, and I'm not even going to talk about the plot holes. Weird enough, we already discussed that too. The naive teen protagonist story is overdone and plain boring. This is riddled with grammatical errors, but
I don't get how Laurie's naive. She's a badass from the beginning. Yeah, she's like, a bit scared of her dad, but she's not scared like of anything that's going around. She's facing like the problems head on.
I think the confusion and the family confusion might be what they're getting at, but no, if you're looking at the overall character build and the character progression of Laurie, absolutely not. I don't think she's naive. I think there are aspects of the story that could be perceived as naive, but I don't believe that her herself are naive.
Yeah, it doesn't affect her main character development. Yeah,
that, and I don't think it's boring. I think to be able to honestly, to truly say that this is boring, you have to say every single horror movie
is boring.
Exactly, because 95%+ of them all have a teen protagonist
who's having some issues. She goes through the exact same thing. It's a common trope in the slasher genre, but you know, it works well. If the formula works, don't change it.
Exactly.
They've not changed anything in there. She's still someone we can root for. Yes, she's got issues that she will, you know, face as any final girl does, but she's not naive in the slightest, and it doesn't. She's not boring to follow. Again,
No.
like, this movie is the complete opposite of boring. If there's any movie, any horror movie you want to see to put you in a good mood, this is the one you put on. It's not going to disappoint you in any way if you just want a good time, and that's what it is.
See, it's not even one of those guilty pleasure movies, because
because it's so fucking good.
It is. If you hate your life, and I say this very loosely, if you hate your life enough that you have to overanalyze good things, that's 100% a you problem. But to continue on with this review, all of the characters are all of the characters are unlikable and impossible to sympathize. That's not sympathize, but sympathize with. Is that like photosynthesis? Fuck, I fucked myself up. See, I was talking shit and I ruined myself. With, unlike the original story, which at least had some form of character development, which that's not true. You and I went over it in past fucking episodes. That Nightmare 4 was the best example of the worst character development.
Yeah. This one is again, it's got characters who have common, you know, tropes, the stereotypical, but they do have that development, like Kia. Again, for example, I'm just thinking of this one scene. It's honestly probably the most fucking bizarre scene and works so well. Do you know when she's waiting for Laurie after she's having a little checkup in the school hospital?
With the nose job.
Got your nose.
Oh my god. And then she just fucking yeets that goddamn magazine right across. And everybody's just sitting there like, what? Like,
what the fuck happened to you?
Right, like, oh my god.
But again, like, I know I'm distracting you, but again, this fits into the Freddy not being strong enough, because she was asleep and she got, you know, injured off Freddy.
Right.
In that.
But
the effects didn't carry over because, again, he's not strong enough. People don't remember him, so he can't have that power. So it does, even though it's got a sloppy but brilliant plot, it makes well with its continuity within the movie itself. But fuck the rest of the franchise is off, but it works so well with the continuity within the film.
Well, so that's the thing, and if you're looking at the actual plot of the movie, which it essentially just piggybacking onto what you said, if you're looking at the Nightmare franchise, it makes no sense, because Freddy came back at worse fucking intervals. We've acknowledged it in other episodes. He's coming to the real world. He's not. His strength meant nothing. It was just fear. But this worked because he wanted to use Jason as a puppet. How could you use Jason as a puppet if you're the one doing, all that fun stuff? Which there are other ways they could have went around it, because Freddy is he's a psychopath. He plays games with people in their dreams.
No.
Right. So you could have went about it so many ways, but that was the way that made the most sense. And I can't overanalyze what they thought, because again, we're talking about a movie that essentially blew each other's franchises away because it acknowledged something that had really never been done correctly before, and it was this showdown. This fucking part I like. So this is the end of this review. The cash-grabbing female nudity reminded me of American Pie, which only 2013 Shane Dawson's fans would enjoy. So I guess watch the movie if you want to suffer. So not the suffer part. The suffer, I think we've already acknowledged. The female nudity, again, it's not the first fucking film in either franchise to show nudity. Both Friday the 13th went a little I don't want to say a little harder. They had a little bit more nudity than what Nightmare did, but
Yeah.
But they had it.
I think the Nightmare franchise only shows a pair of tits once, and that's in Nightmare 3.
I think you do get. I think you do get a peek at Alice's in 5.
Oh, when she's in the shower?
Yeah, I think so. I'd have to watch it again, but I believe so.
Yeah, but that's not like, you know, in your face, because obviously the shower's a bit steamed and stuff and there's water around, so it's not that in your face. Compare that to fucking, you know, the Friday franchise and tits flashing. Tits are in your face.
Titties everywhere. You know, yeah, it's no, I understand.
And yeah, there's not even that much nudity in this film. Yeah, I think all in all, you see about 3 pairs of tits. That's about it. So you got Gibbs, obviously, because she has a sex scene. You're gonna see those titties. You got the opening girl in Jason's Nightmare when she's, you know, swimming in the lake, all nude, as you do in freezing cold fucking water.
You know, I'm gonna say it, and I'm gonna be. I don't care if anybody calls me a pervert or anything for there. I'm
From
a
nice
guy.
titties.
I'm a guy. Yeah. That was the best part of the movie. We take away every other aspect. We could have just left it there, and I would have been fine. Because
listen, I'm not a fan of, like, you know, girls like that. Obviously, don't know if you can tell, but I'm a bit batty. But I can appreciate a good set of tits when I see one.
Callum, I literally saw a post of yours that said how sexy Skeet Ulrich was. I'm fairly certain. I'm almost fairly certain everybody else could. But yeah, right, like, they were in your face, but they weren't in your face because it was the amount of time that you actually saw, I can't remember the actress's name, but the amount of time that you actually saw her boobs were so insignificant that yeah, they were in your face, but then they were gone. And then, oh, okay, you got a nip slip when she was about to get rocked by Jason, and then she morphed into all these other people.
Yeah.
What is that? And then yeah, you got Gib titties and all that, but that was really it.
Yeah, and the dead camp counselor, who, you know, is dead.
Oh, she was dead on her feet, so that doesn't count.
Exactly.
But yeah, I almost.
If those titties couldn't help Freddy Krueger come, what can?
I almost want to find a controversial one, and the reason I want to, or a controversial review, but the reason that I want to is because I don't think you and I have had an actual controversial negative review on a Google form that. Besides, like, the normal things, like, you and I discuss, like, yeah, there's plot holes, but it doesn't destroy the movie. Other people are just freaking out, that kind of stuff. Let me see. Any other thoughts you have while I skim through here?
Yeah, so, again, 2003 it was released. Horror had quite a good turnout for 2003. It had, you know, the remake of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which I personally love. I think it's one of my favourites in the remake, you know, remake aspect, but also one of my favourites of the Texas Chainsaw franchise. I think it's the best version of a remake you could possibly ask for. Jeepers Creepers 2, again, a little gem for me. That film fucking it terrifies the shit out of me still, but I still enjoy it.
That one was weird enough that it was phenomenal. I saw bits and pieces of the third one.
Oh, don't even bother.
I think I saw half of it, and I think I was at work, and I was in between 911 calls, and I saw half of it, and I went on something, and I didn't have time to watch the rest of it. But what I had seen for the third one was not appealing, and I'm going to be honest, there's a lot of talk about Jeepers Creepers Reborn, and I almost don't even want to waste my time just with the little bit that I saw from 3.
We'll do you know what? We'll get onto that franchise at some point because I've so much this. And again, you have Wrong Turn, the Kickstarter to a shitty franchise, but one that is a guilty pleasure. I love Wrong Turn.
But so here's my issue with Wrong Turn, though, is you have
You
All
want
right.
to talk about fucking teenage nudity and it being the fucking, exploit. Wrong turn. That is the franchise that does that.
Oh my god.
Kicks left, right, centre. You get a fanny in your face every now and then. Fucking hell.
There,
Lesbian sex.
but that's,
murder.
I mean, that's the thing is, oh, you know what? Going back to the franchises, and actually, I plan to watch this one tonight, and I'm super excited about it. Hostel.
Oh, do you know what? I actually watched that quite recently, and I think that is a phenomenal film.
That is one of those that it is. It's torture porn. It's literally Saw, but I almost feel Hostel's worse because it takes.
It's more of a pleasure from it that the characters are doing it for more of a pleasure. Jigsaw in Saw, he's teaching them a lesson, whereas the people in this one, they're doing it out of a pure selfishness that they can afford to do it, that this is how they choose to spend their pastime. It's complete different, and I think that's where Hostel excels, whereas Saw failed. I'm not the biggest fan of Saw and its franchise. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'll watch it every now and then, but I don't think it's got that. It's not as captivating as Hostel, whereas, the likes of Hostel and its other film, it's so much more extreme and daring. It does things that are literally shocking, whereas Saw, you expect what's coming.
So, Callum, after this webisode, I actually have some ideas I want to run past you, but I understand it's late there, and we'll try and wrap this up soon, but I need to play 2 fucking songs for you because of the movies we're talking about. But anyway, going back, it's Friday the 13th for the most part stayed consistent throughout its franchise. There were some intervals. Manhattan was the most deviated movie in the franchise, not including Jason Goes to Hell. We're just going to pretend that didn't fucking happen, even though it was a big part at the end. But it stayed consistent. Nightmare, for the most part, stayed consistent. You have other movies like Wrong Turn that it was horrific nudity. It was for the sake of just that. Saw was the same way, things like that. So that last review was fucking terrible.
And Final Destination 2 got released in 2003 as well.
Alright, so here's my fucking deal with that one. Okay, I don't know about how you are. So, I'm assuming the fact that you guys drive on the other side of the road than we do doesn't mean anything. I would assume you guys have log trucks, right?
No, we don't have log trucks.
Okay, well, we fucking do. And it's not a problem when you are sitting at a red light. But let me fucking tell you, when you're going 70 miles an hour down the turnpike here, and these motherfuckers are in front of you, that's a problem. That is terrifying. That is fucking flashbacks to Final Destination 2. That is a no-no. That is a, I lived my best life.
I'm dead.
Right, like that's, alright, well, let me bend over and kiss my ass goodbye, So, the reviews I'm seeing, the other 1-star reviews that I'm seeing, they don't go into depth, and I think a lot of them are just grammatically horrific, but a lot of them...
Obviously, people don't have correct grammar. They don't know shit about movies.
I'm confused about this one. I just came across it. Literally, it's a 1 out of 5-star review, and it says meow. And then the next one is a 3 out of 5 star that says Freddy vs. Jason full movie 2013 ... Okay. One says bust. Or it says one word bust, whole bunch of dots, and then bust, and it's 1 out of 5. So a lot of the other 1-star reviews that I'm seeing, actually, I can narrow it down. Yeah, it's literally that. So the 1-star reviews I'm seeing, and they're like maybe 1 line, 2 lines. After the last one we read, It's not good. CGI is embarrassing, confusing plot holes, and acting of main characters are bad and cringeworthy. I don't think so, because you also have to understand, if you are really a horror fan, and I say this as kindly as I can, and I'm not trying to shit on anybody by any means, you have seen these indie horror movies where they are college horror movies. Those are bad acting, because you have people who have never done dick, who have no direction, and they're just doing their thing. So I disagree with that, but to each is their own. The only good part is Robert Englund's portrayal of Freddy Krueger. Okay, sure, it is a portrayal of Freddy Krueger, but he is Freddy Krueger.
No questions.
Right, like, the remake wasn't even out. He was Freddy Krueger. So, everything else I could do without, so pretty much the whole movie, I understand. Next one, no effort seemed to be put into the writing, no character developed, the scenes and acting were awful, and the stereotypes were the worst. I'm going to assume the stereotypes they're referring to were the black stereotype, not even a stereotype.
I'm still on a maybe.
Yeah, the dark meat, because I can't think of any other stereotypes on there.
Just the stoner as well, I can think of. I
Okay.
wouldn't let him in the nerd.
I don't know how it is in the UK, but if you know legitimate fucking stoners,
They are nothing like that.
Okay, if you know legitimate American stoners, I'm not saying they are like that, because I know some that are actually decent. I also know some that, holy fuck, like, damn. And I am going to openly say that I am not admitting to anything, but a few years ago I may have inhaled some medicinal marijuana. May have. I'm saying it's hypothetical. I may have. Or not hypothetical. It's whatever the fuck you want to call it. I can't think of it. And I may have had dry heaves, almost as if I was drunk, but nothing came out because I wasn't drunk. May have. And I also sat in my fucking car for 2 hours staring out into nowhere. So let me tell you, some of this shit over here is fucking wild. And anymore, you get like K2 and synthetic, and that wasn't what I had, and I'm glad about that, because that fucks people up. That sets them into like psychosis and that. Because Americans, we don't just mix energy drinks with our alcohol. We decide we're just going to kill each other, but that's fine. But yeah, no, in a way, it depends on the amount of the user. Sure, the stoners could be portrayed as that. But actually, you know what? The absolute best comparison to the stoners there, and to say that all stoners don't act alike, is Cheech and Chong. How do Cheech and Chong act? Even just watching their comedy specials, these motherfuckers are blitzed constantly.
High as a kite.
Right, there are even times Snoop Dogg, right, and we're talking somebody that like rolls and smokes constantly. There are even some times that he's in interviews and he's just spaced. Right, so really it's not a far out portrayal, but the way they're portraying it is somebody that is fucking smoking.
Fully out there.
Right, like somebody that's been toking it up for a little bit. The next one, the movie is way too scary and makes no sense. Seriously, what kind of movies is this? Yikes. Okay.
I don't think it's that scary.
I think it has the fearful advantage of it, but I don't think it's scary. Great premise. Great premise. These kids are about as smart as a loaf of bread. All right, no, that's.
Sums it up.
I don't agree with that, but I thought it was fucking funny. Some of them, sure, but really not entertaining at all. Props, not realistic, just downright low budget. Oh my god, that brings me to the next point. Alright, the rest of it is like trash. So speaking of the budget for this film was, I believe, higher than any other Nightmare film. I don't know about Friday the 13th. We haven't done that. But Nightmare on Elm Street has, if I remember correctly, has continuously been anywhere between 6 to like 9 million, right?
Yeah, never high.
The the budget for this is 25 million USD, and then it has a secondary number, which is 30 million USD. So we'll fuck it. We'll go with the higher end, 30 million, right?
Due to inflation, yeah.
The box office for this movie was 116.6 million. That should be the highest grossing out of the entire franchise. If I remember correctly, it should be.
I don't know. I feel like the remake did take that spot, but I'm not too sure.
Hang on. I'll tell you in a second. Nightmare. That was 2009, right?
10.
2010. There it is. That is... Oh, wait, I don't know why I did the budget. So the budget for the remake was 35 million. So only a little bit higher. Box office was... Box office mojo. Holy fuck, that's bright. I went the overall. Budget's 35,000. The opening weekend was 32 million. Okay, no, yeah, sure. It was 32 million. It was seen in 3,332 theaters. Now it does not describe whether it was the U.S. or the U.K. who saw it first. And the issue is I know there are a lot of films that the U.S. gets first. Scream 5. But I also know there are other films that the UK has gotten first. And I really don't know why. But regardless, so just the opening weekend it made more. I don't think it deserves that by any fucking means. But
it's still good.
It's that is the, at least to me, that is the definition of a guilty pleasure.
It surpassed. Ooh. Yeah, so it.
I thought. So, and I'm going to talk a little bit as a guy, and then again as a critic a little bit. I thought Nancy was an absolutely gorgeous female. I thought she was a phenomenal final girl. And why I thought she was a phenomenal final girl, besides her looks, was because she brought in that emo gothic kind of sense to it that really Nightmare on Elm Street has. It's just it hasn't fully explored that. It has in the past, but not with the final girl being this gothic entity. I like that. I didn't really like much else. The storyline was interesting up until it revitalized Wes Craven's initial desire for Freddy Krueger to be a child molester. And the reason I did not like that was simply because that wasn't the franchise. Regardless what his initial thoughts were, or his initial wishes.
Wasn't canon.
Exactly. Freddy Krueger was not a child molester when it came out, and that's not how the franchise portrayed him. He was a child murderer. So now you're going to make a remake, which perfect comparison. I not a perfect comparison, and I'll tell you why. Almost perfect comparison. Child's Play 2019. Loved the movie. Thought it was phenomenal because it took Chucky into a whole nother light. Mainly because you felt bad for Chucky because he was programmed that way, he wasn't possessed. However, it spit on the faces of fucking fans who knew what Chucky was and knew who he was. The same thing as this. But
it's a change and adaptation that the fans don't want.
Exactly. Well, the old school fans. The new school fans love that because that was cool. That was it wasn't even so much that it was cool. It was in their time period, and that was cool to them. Now, and I don't say I'm old. I'm only 25, but I was raised on the old school stuff. I was raised on old school metal. I was raised on old school fucking everything. So to see these new things, and don't get me wrong, I get really excited. Like, I went to see Child's Play in theaters. I went to see Scream 2022 in theaters. I loved it. I thought it was phenomenal. But it does not take away from the classics. Original. Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I mean that's my overall thought on the remake, which, you know, we'll get into that more on Thursday. But I believe it is time for our final review of Freddy vs. Jason.
Ooh.
Do you know what's fucked up before we even start this? Is I'm even worried about the final review. And the reason I'm worried is I want to be critical, because you and I are supposed to be critical. Literally, it's in the name critic. But I don't want to be. This is the only movie I do not really want to be critical. But this is the only movie in the franchise I don't want to be critical.
Okay, so overall, I'd give it a 6 out of 10.
Oh, man.
It had some strong performances, some good characters, some beautiful cinematography, and the deaths and gore was... But the plot really holds it back.
I don't disagree. Even with that, I have to give it a 7.5. And here's why. So, for Jason, and it seems like even with Uber Jason and so forth, is Jason continuously made things brutal. So while that was not unheard of for him, Freddy Krueger never had a movie where it was that grotesque, where you didn't have people snapping in half, or not anything that was blatantly grotesque, besides the, like, fucking fist fucking somebody's mouth with food, which I'm still, because Jason was able to step into Springwood and cause the havoc that he caused, I have to give it a 7.5. The plot, yep, like I said, the plot needed significant work. I think they should have thought of it a little bit more, especially with the budget that they had. They had the time to do it, compared to all the other nightmares. Even the ones that got it right didn't have a budget like that. And we're talking again, 12 years. Yeah,
it just holds it back a bit.
It does, but it still goes back to, example, Nightmare 4. Horrifying fucking plot holes into Nightmare 5. Superpowers disappear. They almost write it off like it never happened. They're both great films. I would still watch them over and over again. Probably not as much as this, but that's my point, is I would watch this over and over again compared to those two. Those two as classics, this as fucking Freddy versus Jason. You know. So right, so that's kind of where I'm starting to run into the I'm starting to run more so into the 7.5. I think the gore was even more phenomenal. When you had little worm Freddy slamming down somebody's throat, that was fucked up, but I appreciated it. I thought that took it into, again, a whole nother light. It brought the dream world into reality, but it brought it in for a stoner who was toked the fuck out of his mind. One joint wouldn't do that to anybody. I think maybe that's the stereotype that the one person we had talked about, or talked in partisan of, might have referenced. But yeah,
still a good movie.
It is. I think it's a phenomenal movie, and especially compared to its successor, I mean, holy fuck! If we're comparing it to a successor, I want to pop it up to a 9.5. You know, like I would 100% put Wizard of Oz up to like 100 out of 10 if we're comparing it to the new Nightmare on Elm Street. I can't wait for Thursday, man. I'll tell you what.
It's gonna be a juicy video. Juicy.
It's gonna be something, let me tell you. But do you have anything else to add, bud?
Oh. All I can do is recommend this movie.
I give it a great recommendation. I think anybody that has not saw this movie needs to make it a point to see this movie.
It's just good fun.
I think, truly, if you have not seen the franchises that precede it, you may be doing yourself a disadvantage. I almost feel like you would benefit yourself greater to see a couple of Friday the 13th movies before this movie versus the entire franchise of Nightmare on Elm Street. You have to see the entire franchise of Nightmare on Elm Street because it ties everything together, and the way that it does is the beginning sequence where he starts bringing in all of the flashbacks of how he was killed.
Whereas Friday, you only need to watch, I'd say 3, 4, 7, 8, and 9.
You could almost escape 8. 8 again, and it might be a guilty favorite, but 8 is still my favorite. But 8 has nothing to do with the entirety of the story, so you could probably skip 8. I would almost go as far in place of 8, 2, 3. You almost don't need 4. Because anything with Tommy Jarvis,
it's his own storyline, yeah.
Yeah, so, and I love Tommy Jarvis to begin with, but I wish he would have been brought into this timeline, but you know, it's a completely separate thing. So, yeah, I would say Friday the 13th, 2, 3, 7, and 9.
Maybe 1 as well.
What? Yeah, you know what? Because Pamela Voorhees is in it. Yeah, I would absolutely say 1, 2, 3, 7, and 9. I think they would suffice for. Now, I think the longest out of them is 2 hours, and I might be wrong. It might only be like an hour and 45 minutes, but it may take some time. Not as long as the entire Nightmare franchise is going to do, but at the same time, if you're looking the entirety of the Friday the 13th franchise, it's nothing compared to the Nightmare franchise. But
the 6 whole movies
for Nightmare,
yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh my God, yeah. Because if you're really looking at, again, I mean, the Friday the 13th franchise, you're looking 1 through 9, and you're not even looking. Hang on, stand by. 2 seconds. You're looking 10 films. 10 films because Jason X came out in 2001.
Don't need Jason X because that takes place after Freddy vs. Jason, I think.
I don't know. I honestly don't think. I don't know what they thought because see, here's like Leprechaun. Love Leprechaun. Absolute favorite. I don't want to say favorite franchise. One of my favorite franchises because you got a little Leprechaun fucking things up. It's terrifying. Hate Leprechauns now because of that, but that's cool as shit. Right, Lucky Charms, love the cereal, hate the fucking mascot. But they did a similar thing. Leprechaun 4 in space was trash, but it was in space, and then I think Leprechaun 5 was Leprechaun 5 is Leprechaun in the Hood. And it's like this whole pretty like Jason X was one of those things, just like Nightmare 4, like, hey, like, this was a bad idea, and it didn't happen. But Uber Jason was a big deal. Uber Jason was a fucking maniac. And everybody loved that. They didn't like the story because Jason X was in space. Jason was in space. Space was a really cool ideology at one point, but overall, putting these iconic people up in space is trash. It's ridiculous.
Like Hellraiser.
I love Hellraiser. I love Hellraiser to death. There are so many movies, and you don't need those many movies for Hellraiser. But Judgment was trash. Hate Judgment to death. Love the movie though. Love the franchise. I can't tell you how many times I played. Fuck, Cullum, you're fucking me up, bro. I can't tell you how many times I played Dead by Daylight, and even my kid yells for Pinhead because I have that character. Now I feel like I almost feel the need to play Dead by Daylight at some point soon. Goddamn. Anyway, yeah, no, I mean that's the thing is, you put these iconic villains in space, and Hellraiser, they didn't do it right. And a lot of these movies don't. Hellraiser, you can do whatever the fuck you want with them, because they're not in our world. It's essentially the same thing as Freddy Krueger. They're not, because you summon them. You're going into the dark side, and Star Wars reference. You're going into the dark side, and that's where they're at. And they come and get you. It's this whole fucking mess, but they're not in our world. Freddy Krueger was not in our world. The problem is Jason was. Leprechaun was. You're bringing these people that are in the real world and you're putting them into unrealistic expectations. The reason Freddy vs. Jason worked was there was already an unrealistic expectation of a nightmare villain, and then you have somebody that, like, both of them are in hell, and there's this entire controversy of whether or not hell exists to begin with, whether, there's a god, all this other stuff, but there's still this. And Freddy, this motherfucker over here, is like, I'm gonna find this dick, and he's gonna go destroy everything.
And then he gets jealous.
Right, like, we're talking like Freddy went hardcore psychotic X, is pretty much what happened. But no, that's the thing. I think that's where Jason X fucked up. Freddy, thank God, is never going to space. And I honestly believe, even now, if they ever put a Freddy Goes to Space movie out, I'm going to unalive myself. I can't do it. Like, that right there says that Hollywood has nothing else to offer, and I need entertainment. Like, you would watch. Yeah. Front row seat, like, yeah, let's lift off.
Chucky in space.
I might see that one, because that might be more terrifying, because you think you're just taking off with a doll. I'm actually really excited for Chucky season 2.
Oh, me too.
I would absolutely love to cover that on Horror Rants, but I almost feel like we would have to do the entire franchise, or the entire series preceding it, before we'd actually go to the seasons. The seasons, I don't think, would take long to describe. We honestly, even at the end of season 2, we'd probably be able to cover that in 2 hours.
Oh, yeah.
But even so, just the entirety of the movies, because when you get to Bride of Chucky through even, I would say, Curse of Chucky, it's not bad, because they kind of run together. When you get to Cult of Chucky, that's when shit gets weird, or even more weird.
God.
I love Cult of, the death scene with the glass, with like the oxygen cylinder going into the fucking skylight. And oh my God,
nice callback.
It is so beautiful. It's sickening to say, but it is so beautiful to just see that cinematography. And I think what makes things even better, and this is I love Chucky to death regardless, and I loved Chucky when I was a kid, before any of this made sense to me, because when I was a kid, what was gay, what was straight, nobody gave a shit. But there were a lot of times where I guess Chucky had even the word and I say this as reference and not because I mean anything by it, but the word faggot was used in season 1 of Chucky, and there were some people that threw a fit about that. But what's funny about that, or any other gay or straight or any other references in the past, which nobody cares about the straight references because they're not provoking, is Don Mancini's fucking openly gay. And it's almost like you're telling somebody, like, hey, you're a piece of shit, but I respect you. Like, what? How the fuck do you do that? How do you say, hey, you suck because you're a homophobe, but I respect the fact that you're homosexual? No. What the fuck? Oh, Christ.
Love it.
But yeah, I mean, I would love to do Chucky at some point. I'm sure that's going to be a little bit down because that's just like Friday the 13th. That's a bigger fucking franchise.
And we'll do it. We'll do it.
Oh, I'm excited. I'm sure we got many more episodes. We just need to find a better streaming platform to that's not going to fucking make us look like a bunch of dickheads.
Yeah, fuck you, Twitch.
Yeah, right. But yeah, I mean, that's all I have for Freddy vs. Jason. Absolutely love the movie. What was it? 6 out of 10 for you, Callum?
Yeah.
7.5 out of 10 for me. Game recognizes game. When you look at all the other aspects of the franchise and you see these two collide, it makes it phenomenal.
It's just beautiful. It is.
It is. It's definitely something else. But with that, our next episode is going to be this Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time in the United States, 11 p.m. European Time, obviously in the UK. With that being said, thank you for coming out. I know we fluctuated a little bit. I think the highest we went was about 6 views at one time, and I greatly appreciate that. Across all platforms. By all means, to anybody that sees this ahead of time, anybody that's still here, tell your friends. We greatly appreciate anybody coming out. We want open discussion, respectful open discussion, the same as Callum and I can respectfully disagree with one another. This isn't a place to fight or anything like that. But absolutely, bring what you want. Message my pages. Message Callum at HorrorRant on Instagram. Give recommendations for movies you want to see us review. Trust me, I can almost guarantee you probably within the next 12 hours of the time you send that message, we've already watched it, if we haven't seen it. However, we'll see you again Thursday. We're going to go over the Nightmare remake, and that'll end up the Nightmare saga. Anything else, Callum?
Get ready for Thursday.
I'm going to have a fucking meltdown. But